Thank you, guys. And thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. And thank you to my wife, too, for giving me this opportunity to speak with you guys tonight on this of the 12 powers imagination. Albert Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge. And my talk title today is Imagination, Cultivating Divine Connection. The power that you feel behind this song, Imagine by John Lennon, that internal power, what you sense and what you feel, for me, that is the divine connection right there. And for me, that's why imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is important, but imagination, for me, is a divine link. I found an affirmation as I was thumbing through some of the daily words that we have at home. It's a stack about like this. Many of you know that my wife is one of the writers for the daily words, so we have a few lying around. And so I was flipping through some of them, and I really appreciate the one that we have today. And I found a couple others. One of them that stuck with me was, "My imagination is my link to the creative power of God." That one rang very, very true for me. And I'm going to talk to you today coming just from my heart. I'm not a teacher, but I do have a lot to say about this topic, imagination. Metaphysically, imagination is considered the union of head and heart. I have had this experience. I have been a singer-songwriter, I think, since I was about 17. I began writing songs. My family's very musical. And so I remember it very vividly, actually, sitting down at the desk going, I'm going to write a song. Got out my pen and my paper, and off I go. I start writing a song, and it was laborious, to say the least. Tear this up, throw it right in there, keep going, and it just went on forever and ever. And finally, I pounded this song out, and I played it, and it just kind of sat there. And I took no great joy in playing this song. I would play it for other people. Like, that's nice, Victor. Yeah. What else you got? And took an awakening to my own spiritual path to realize the difference between this union of head and heart. And so my head tried to write a song, and there's some things in there, sure, some good rhymes and whatnot, but it really lacked heart. And so as I awakened in my spiritual path, I was able to come to a place, and this is what I'm going to talk about today, where I actually am able to get out of the way and allow the divine connection to flow through me. And when it's all over and said and done, there is a song, a poem, or a piece of music, or something that's there, and I get to, like everybody else, interpret it for the first time. It's like, oh my gosh, what's this about? Many of you are aware of. Those of you that might be new today, Charles Fillmore was one of the co-founders of the Unity movement, and his take on imagination is this. Charles Fillmore taught that the highest and best work of the imagination is the marvelous transformation that it works in character. Imagine that you are one with the principle of good, and you will become truly good. To imagine oneself perfect fixes the idea of perfection in the invisible mind substance. And the mind forces at once begin the work of bringing forth that perfection. Imagine a world with no hunger. Imagine your life, for example, moving in the direction of your dreams. So today I'm going to talk about, and this is my twist now on imagination, and that is, I'm going to talk about imagination. And sure, it's easy, right, when we talk about poetry and music, I mean, dance, painting, I mean, the list is long and vast of those that are the most obvious products of imagination. Creativity is the product of imagination. And so all those are easy products, but there are many, many more. Those that are not so obvious. an organized system of socks in a drawer. At some point, a person imagines that their sock and undie drawer can be laid out thusly so. Not me. My socks and undies are laid out thusly so, but that's over the curtain rod, over the side of the bed, over the side of the basket. However, that is, in my opinion, one of the other values, or perhaps shall I say objects of imagination. Creating a meal for 4, 5 people, 6 people. There is imagination. There's a divine connection in that, but it's not one of those that we readily kind of go, oh, wow, what a great imagination, but it's truly there. And I think that's one of the things that we can take with us today, is to perhaps start seeing the product of imagination everywhere we look, and everyone we meet. Believe it or not, imagination can be abused or misused. Hello, worry. Worry is a misuse of the imagination. So my twist, or my take on imagination today, is going to be on basically 2 areas. I'm going to talk about imagination in my life and how it applies in my life as a barometer. It helps me get a feel or a fix as to where I'm at on my spiritual path. Am I straying a little left, a little right, a little off course here and there? I'm always on my path. I believe we always are. But it's become a barometer for me. I didn't try to make it that way. It's just what happened. And then also imagination as an incredibly powerful healing tool. That's what imagination has become in my life. Poetry, music, painting, all of those things have become byproducts of that. But for me, the key focus is imagination as barometer and imagination as healing. So, with that being said, I want to tell you about my process as a singer-songwriter. The sit at the desk and pound it out till 2 in the morning just didn't really work, okay? So over the years, in fact, to be honest with you, it took about 17 years before I ever wrote another song. As I experienced a number of tragedies in my life, and those tragedies then placed me into an awakening of my spiritual path. I've always been on it, but I didn't know it. So as I awakened to my spiritual path, began meditating, began working with a teacher, began meeting with spiritual community, began voracious reading, all of a sudden, things started changing for me. And I would be getting little synchronicities, little insights here and there, things. It was kind of transformative and magical in a way. I would get all these ideas. 2 o'clock in the morning, I just had to write them down. It's like, where are these ideas coming from? Phrases, lyrics, music notes, and things like that. Ideas for paintings, ideas where I could play. They were just starting to download. This was all happening. And for the first time in 17 years, music began coming through me. Oh, I fought it. Oh, yes. Oh, this is weird. This isn't right. I'll show you who's boss. I know how to write a song. So I fought it, but I didn't have a chance because it was resistance. And so as I learned to get out of the way, it's like, okay, don't fight it. Just let the song come through. So gobbledygook, I would just write down gobbledygook. So my process became rather strange. So here we go. My process now is such that when I have some time, I will sit down and with my guitar, I will begin just playing, okay? Just gonna make some music. Nothing, not gonna force anything, keeping an open, clear mind. And I'll just play, just dibble-dabble with chords, and then I'll begin vocalizing. Now, this part could be perhaps why both of our neighbors have moved recently on either side of me, because I'm not saying anything, I'm just vocalizing. It's a little bit like practicing yodeling. So this just comes out. And so it's rather a cacophony of me just banging out some chords and yodeling and up that babbly doo woohoo, just stuff's coming out. But if my muse is there, if the timing is right and I'm open, which is what I'm going to talk about next, and I'm open, the channel, like a gate, just opens. Whew. And all of a sudden, here comes the download. Lyrics, poetry, words, sometimes not even real words. Yesterdaisies is a line in one of my songs. Okay, it's not mine to question. It just comes through, and they go down on paper, and they go down in whatever order. I just get them out as fast as possible. My cell phone has become a very good friend of mine because I will just pop it on now when the muse shows up and records something that comes through. This is where I had one of the most incredibly intense spiritual experiences of my life, because one night in this process, I was allowing stuff to come through, and I began writing. Well, the download was intense, and I had to write so fast to get this stuff down that when it was all said and done, I looked at the paper. This was not my handwriting in any way, shape, or form. It didn't look like anything I had ever written. However, it looked familiar. So I went downstairs and I pulled out an old suitcase that had letters from my grandmother. And my grandmother is where my music comes from. And so I opened up some letters, and it only took one. And I set it down side by side. And the way the T's were crossed, the way the G tail curled underneath, the way the I's were dotted, absolutely identical. I stood in absolute shock and awe. It was that moment I knew that I know nothing. I have no idea what's going on. I thought I knew everything. I've read all the books. The Eightfold Path, the Four Noble Truths, all these great things. I could just list them off for you. I don't know anything. These little five senses are so limited because there's a lot more going on than what we can see. Folks, this is my testimonial. So the process now, and so I got a visit from Grandma. So the process now for me is to stay open and allow this incredible download of imagination and creativity to simply come through me. I will record it on paper or on my iPhone. Now the beauty of it is the second step, where and with a little bit more of a refined eye, I can say, oh, I like this phrase, but I think it might go here. And this phrase goes there. And I'll move these around, and oh, I'll take these four, and that's going to be the chorus. So I allow my mind to kind of play a little bit with it, and I'm very sensitive to not doing a lot of changing. It's not really mine to do. Little fixes, this is where my experience as a musician for the past 30-some years can come into play, and I'll allow that to kind of help jump in and move that kind of stuff around. So my process has blown me away, and so it is my connection to the divine. So now here is where imagination as barometer comes into play. I can sit down, and there's nights when I'll play and yodel, we'll just call it that, the atonal mutterings of Victor, or maybe I could be doing some sort of an elk mating call. I'm not really sure what it is, but I'll sit down and I'll do this, and there are times, folks, when nothing happens. That's just all there is to it. It's like, okay, well, muse isn't here, I'm not feeling it, it's not going, so I'll just go off and do my own thing. And so imagination as barometer for me, I'm able to tell more and more now when things are not going too well. And here's what I mean by that. Somebody cuts me off on the highway. I'm afraid of the bills next month. I'm developing worry. I'm developing blocks in my energy system. The flow uses this channel to come through. If it's blocked by upset, I'm carrying some baggage with me, somebody said something to me, I'll show them. Worry, all these things can get in the way. And so when the imagination and creativity is not working for me, I begin paying attention to my barometer going, okay, what's happening here? That's when I turn to my spiritual community. That's when I turn to perhaps readings. That's when I turn to meditation first and foremost, because it will always come up from the silence, what's going on. I'll turn to my teacher. These are my support system. I will turn to my wife. All of these things have become my support system to help me kind of go, okay, what's blocking it? What's in the way? And sure enough, with the curiosity of an 8-year-old child, I will sit in the silence. I will explain things to people, talk about things that have happened to me, share my experiences, and then sit in the silence with them. And sure enough, here comes the energy knot that was in the way. Something's going on, perhaps with my mother. She's moving and she's battling with the moving companies, and I worked with her on it, and we got upset and we had an argument, and I just wrote her off and went home, but the energy stayed with me, and I'm carrying that energy. You'd be surprised how long we can carry energy. Some folks even believe past lives bring energy into this life. I'm not going to go into that, but I'm just saying that some people believe that. I know for a fact that there's energies as a young boy, things that I couldn't handle when I was a 6-year-old boy that are still with me today because it developed a behavior system for protecting myself. Those are what I try to work with when I meditate or I work with a teacher. My wife and I talk about these things. So my barometer has become very, very clear now. I'm like, okay, no music for a couple days, no poetry for a couple days. I can feel the resistance. I can feel myself forcing the creativity, forcing the imagination. There's something going on. My barometer is working. I can then sit down and say, okay, we need to take a look at this. Which brings me to my next point. Imagination I have experienced imagination as a very powerful tool. A comment, something said, a worry, these things build up within me, and imagination has become for me a very, very powerful tool for working with it. A couple weeks ago, I shared with everyone personal wisdom training, which is a process that right now I am a much better student than teacher, but I shared it with everyone about how wisdom training works, about how you go in and you find an energy knot. Somewhere in your body, when I have become still, I can sense or find a place in my body where this wound, this comment, this hurt resides. It's really hard to find when I keep myself busy to not feel that pain. And boy, can I keep myself busy. And radio and the TV's going, and there's people to call and things to do. All this busyness, my cell phone and the iPad, all this busyness is great at keeping me from feeling anything. But when I am alone and I sit with just me and my thoughts and my feelings, when I sit long enough, eventually, there it is. And I simply find it. I do not have to attach a story to it. I do not have to attach blame to it. I just need to find the place where it hurts. Sometimes I need a teacher or a companion or somebody to help me find it, but I will find it. That's my dedication to my spiritual path. Finding those little places where it hurts. Once I'm able to find that, I'm able to use my imagination to give it color, to give it a shape, to give it size, to invite it in and sit down and have tea with it. Spiritual warriors unite. Yeah. That's what I say. Do you like how I used U-Nite? Okay, just checking. That's the whole idea behind spiritual warriors. If you're open and you're ready to invite the pain in, sit down, have tea with it, talk to it. What's going on with you? What are you here to teach me? What is it you want to share with me? And you will be surprised. Because when you work with that pain, and what I do, and we practiced this a few weeks ago, and we'll talk a little bit about it later, but sometimes for me, I'll just plug in a spigot, open it up, and I'll drain that pain right into Mother Earth where she will grow flowers from it. Sometimes I breathe from all parts of my body into that point of pain. And as I exhale, little pieces of that pain go with it. And I will just practice that for as long as it takes for that pain to eventually be given its life, given its breath, given its energy, to be released into the universe. We are meant as human beings to simply allow this pain to move through us, but we stop it. We grab a hold of it. Eckhart Tolle has a great way of talking about this. He sat on the side of the pond and watched two geese. The two geese got into the darndest argument, and they're flapping their wings at each other, and they're up on top of the water, and they're honking and yelling. It was a huge, as they say in Ireland, Donegal. It was a Donegal, or a Donnybrook, a Donnybrook. He watched them. When they were finished, they swam off to the opposite sides of the pond, and he watched them. It was almost exactly at the same moment. Both ducks went up on the water and basically shook it off. They allowed that energy its life. He then watched those two geese, and they would actually go right next to each other. Nothing. Nothing. As human beings, how long do we carry that comment with us? How long do we carry that wound with us? That no good, dirty, rotten, I'll show him. I've got a whole plan of how I'm going to ruin his life. Look at our movies. Look at our television. How long do these characters carry this stuff with them? They're planning and plotting instead of giving the energy its life, allowing it to move through them. The heart was designed to be broken 1,000 times. I can't get past the first one. This energy, with my imagination, I can do amazing things with it. I'm sitting down and having tea with this hurt. We're talking about it, we're discussing it. Really? She said that to you? Yeah, it really hurt. Where did it hurt? It hurt right here in my heart. Well, what did you do then? Well, then I yelled at her because I'm going to make her hurt too. If I got her hurt, she's going to hurt. We had this great discussion. And after a while, it's just like, I'm working with the energy without having to say anything or do anything to anybody. It's just me and my pain working together. Sometimes I just pull the pain out and I drop it like a microphone. Right there. Sorry, sound man. Don't do it. I just pull it out and drop it right there. With my imagination, I can do amazing things with this pain, this energy. I see it, I feel it, I sense it, I give it shape, I give it color, I give it texture, I breathe through it, I pull it out, I drop it. Some of you may be familiar with the practice of Tonglen. Ancient teaching. Those that have come before us have known many wonderful practices. When 9/11 occurred, and there was such tremendous suffering in this country, there were large groups of people that gathered all over the United States. In fact, I think they gathered all over the world to do Tonglen for all those who suffered. Tonglen is an ancient practice of breathing into your heart space the black, thick tar pain and suffering that the others are feeling right now, all over the television, radio, newspapers, internet, breathing in that black, tarry pain substance and transmuting it with your heart. This is imagination, my friends. Transmuting it with your heart into a warm, bright, white smoke that you breathe out, and it enfolds those people with loving, nurturing, caring arms, wraps around them, and keeps them safe and warm as they endure their suffering. Wow. Imagination is more important than knowledge. So imagination as a healing tool for me has saved my life, has transformed my life. And I happen to know a few other folks in this room that are actively participating in these kinds of imaginative healing processes, using their imagination to give pain, to give suffering shape, to give it form, to invite it in, to talk with it. See what's going on. So for the last part here, I would like to take us for a moment into an experiential moment, okay? I like to have a moment where you too can experience this transformative process using your imagination. And to do this, I'm also going to invite my friend Robert to underscore just a little bit. And what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you to take a few deep breaths, and we're going to go into some silence, stillness. Allow the thoughts to simply come and go like clouds across the sky. Do not go with any of those thoughts. Do not go with any of those ideas, any judgments, any stories or commentary. Open your mind, open your heart. Continue breathing deeply up through the nose. Out through the mouth, and allow this breathing process to continue. And as we do this, I would like to bring to mind the prayer of St. Francis. And as I do this, I'm going to pause after each line to allow you to go back to a moment where you experienced this, and I'm going to invite you to transmute the experience. See yourself in a different way in this experience that you had. Continue breathing deeply. Spirit, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Go into your imagination with that. Have you seen or experienced hatred on television, somewhere in your lives? And if you felt the pain of that hatred, maybe even an angry response, I want you now to let your imagination transmute that feeling into your heart space. See instead a beautiful green, bright, white light, breathing out a white smoke perhaps that enfolds that person or those people that you saw at that moment, that holds them in love and nurturing. Where there is injury, let me sow pardon. Has someone said something to you? Has someone wronged you in some way? At the moment that that happened, can you go back to that moment, experience that moment viscerally, and instead of being angry, upset, having an immediate angry reaction, let's sow pardon there. Let your imagination see their own pain for a moment, breathe it in, and transmute it into a lovely white, warm smoke that enfolds them. Where there is doubt, let me sow faith. Where have you doubted your dreams? Where have you doubted your connection to the divine? Breathe that in. transmute it into faith that is infectious for all those around you. Where there is despair, let me sow hope. Where there is darkness, let me sow light. Where there is sadness, let me sow joy. Where I have sought to be understood, instead let me understand. Where I have sought to be loved, instead let me love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in the dying that we are born to eternal life. As you take a deep, cleansing breath through your nose, hold it at the top, let it out slowly. And as you do, open your eyes and be present with me here in this sacred space. My invitation to you is to continue that link with the divine, cultivating a divine connection with my imagination. Namaste. I can only imagine